Aquifer storage. Through every main street, whether it's residential or wherever it is. And then we have about 75% of the cul-de-sacs also done. So, we've still had a few comments, people say, hey, thanks for coming, but geez, now we've got a berm and I just don't know what to do. Either we don't come or you get a berm. So we're trying to work through those and the PR. I think it's similar to kind of the choice that has come up, with this board before. I think everybody would say, yeah, we want to see 3 snow plows in front of our house within 15 minutes of the first snow. We said, okay, we can do that, but we're going to need another 10 mils of taxes. They'd say, no, I didn't mean it that much. So I think it's just kind of balancing the resources. But again, I think Public Services has done great. I saw them out, in my neighborhood and throughout town. And just with my drive, I mean, most of our main arterials seem to actually pretty dry. So they've done great work. And I see Paul on as well. I told Eric if he couldn't make it to go ahead and try to take the rest of the night off. But I do tonight they're going to get out, still try to do some more cleanup. I think we're going to bail out of most residential neighborhoods just because going through and doing another pass is just going to fill up everybody's driveways. They've already kind of cleaned out. So we're kind of in that theory now that more, we're going to give everybody less government tonight in the neighborhoods and stay the heck out of there.
Jane, just to cut you off, I was out all yesterday working and out of Greeley, out of Severance, and this town. The downtown was phenomenal. I went down through the downtown and the whole main street was cleared. I've never seen that before. Sometimes they'll get piled. It was phenomenal. Every place I got into the main towns, there's your courts and stuff that were full. But basically I'd walk in, I'd park on the side street, or I'd walk on the street that was cleared and I'd walk in. But I think that the crew did a phenomenal job. Was very impressed with it. For me being out there working till 10, 11 o'clock at night, I was glad to see that because I could get to the people who needed help.
Are you getting a lot of emergency stuff, Vic?
Yeah, I was getting furnaces down, water leaks. People were panicking. So nothing else. I just got out there and brought them some heat to keep their house going. I had a few freezes, that were probably weak pipes on an outside wall. It wasn't that cold.
Right.
But then water heaters going everywhere. I probably had 7 water heater calls last night. I said, okay, I'm on the way, But for me, today I went over to Fort Collins and I was trying to get to a house that I got a complete repair on. All the pipes in the house are froze. Went to try and get down the street and tore the guard shield off the bottom of my truck. So I backed back out of there and said, well, I'll be back tomorrow with my 4-wheel drive.
Yeah.
So,
that was the thing. I think, Shane, when they did the cul-de-sacs, they pushed the snow to the edges, which is at the end of everybody's driveway. And so people are picking out of it. The problem is, though, that snow is so full of water that it's not a wall of snow anymore. I mean, it's so solid ice. I couldn't. You had to use like a pickaxe to get it broken apart before you could move it. I still wonder if you can't push to the middle of the cul-de-sac, but who knows? I've never done it. I've never tried.
Well, and we've been piling to the center, but it's really hard, to not give somebody a berm. I mean, just when you're pushing around, you're gonna, even if you're pushing everything to the center, you're getting that berm. It's just the physics. You're just gonna kind of push it out. And unless we go back kind of house by house and try to back drag it or something, it just is gonna happen. But Vic, I do appreciate those comments. I'll certainly pass those on, and I'll let you know that, I'm not gonna talk about any other community. But I have talked to people who said I was here, and they've all said that the Windsor streets were plowed better than anywhere else surrounding. So, again, thanks for your comments, and I'll certainly pass that on.
Hey, Shane, just one quick comment too. I thought the communication, just to echo what everyone else said, but also the communication was good. What you put on Facebook and other places, just letting people know that, we've hit this percent of neighborhoods. We're going to hit them all by, I think it was 7 p.m. or whatever it was. And so for me, I kind of grew up in Iowa, the berms at the end of the driveway. It's like you get it all done, you're tired. It's just something I expect, I guess. But, I think, like you said, there's no easy way around it. But I was lucky I had one of my kids home to take care of that. So,
right, and when we get people on a list, when we know somebody's handicapped or elderly, we do try to take a little bit extra care. So we're not completely, we don't ignore people with extra needs in the community, but we just can't give kind of that white glove service to everybody, because we just, we would be in Water Valley South for 6 days and then we'd move on, so.
Hey, I know, Libby.
Hey, how old to be on that list, Shane?
Yeah, what's elderly to you?
At least 85. At least 85. And there will be things also for the note on comms. I'll tell you that I didn't see it yet, but I was just talking to Eric, maybe 5:45, and I know he's working with Kim to push out another message tonight to just make sure people know, okay, this is where we are. Here's our plan now. So, I think they may not love the message, but they'll certainly know what's going on. They won't have to guess.
Well, you guys sent out a message and it popped up on my phone saying like the winds had increased and it started snowing again. I turned and looked out the window and it was exactly what you said. It was kind of funny.
Well, hey, looks like we got the mayor here for the first time without being on the dais.
That's true. Here we go.
All right.
Run this from abroad. This is the from the bunker snowed in work session here. So
you got some filing to do there, Mayor.
Glad to see you.
Oh boy, does that show on the video? Damn.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. I shouldn't show you the rest of it.
Hey, you just moved, man.
I know. Go easy. Thanks, Scott. All right. We'll go ahead and call tonight's town board work session to order for Monday, March 15th, 2021. I got the time now at 6:08 p.m. The goal of this work session is to have the town board receive information on topics of town business from the town manager, town attorney, and town staff in order to exchange ideas and opinions regarding these topics. Members of the public in attendance virtually are asked to be recognized by the mayor before participating in discussions of the town board. As it says, as I'm also watching on TV right here, a water resources overview. Mr. Lasoing, our water resource administrator, you have the first agenda item this evening. Hopefully I said your name right. I need to practice that.
That'll work. One of the easiest ways to remember it is if a bird loses a wing, it has less a wing. So less a wing.
I will never forget it now. Wish you told me that 6 months ago.
A wing. Less.
You're getting there. You're getting so close. And I don't know if that's the right way to say it either, because you could probably find other less wings that say it a different way, but that's what I've gone with. So
Good way to do it.
let's see here.
Please go for it, buddy.
All right. Try and get this started here. Well, few good things. All those icebergs and everything, they'll eventually melt, be water in the river. So that makes me excited, at least when that snow and ice melts. Get back into the river. We'll have a little bit of an update, sort of all things relating to water between the potable water supply, an update on the NIST project, a recent update of the Snowpack that we haven't got all the final data from this storm yet, so we tried to find some things to put in there. A little bit about conservation, a little bit about the non-pot systems, both as private and the town system. We'll also have a bit about the Terry Ranch project that the city of Greeley's doing. So just kind of let me know if anytime you guys got questions. Otherwise, we'll just get into it and sort of start with the potable water view, the potable water system overview. This is just kind of a map, shows the Windsor water service area in yellow. Some of the highlights are the Tri-District's Soldier Canyon water treatment plant. That's where the water comes from Fort Collins Loveland Water District, as well as North Weld County Water District. Just north of that's Greeley's Bellevue Water Treatment Plant. That's kind of right in Bellevue, Canyon, mouth the Poudre River, right by Tet's place. Then Greeley also has the Boyd Lake Water Treatment Plant right there on the dam at Boyd Lake. That's also where Windsor's Greeley Loveland Irrigation Company's water will be treated once we get that water through the court case. All that water gets sent through master meters to the town. So it's the town's water rights that they own, that each entity treats that amount of water.
Hey, Leaf, where does North Weld treat their water?
North Weld treats it at Soldier Canyon also.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Yeah. This is just a map a little closer in showing the Windsor utility service area. To the west of Colorado Boulevard's the Fort Collins Loveland Water District. North of Harmony's solely North Weld customers served by North Weld. The average winter demands for the town of Windsor are up to 1.5 million gallons per day. That was our use in January. Probably the last time some of you saw this was 2018, and it was about 1.3 million gallons. So there's been growth through the town, obviously, and as well as increased use probably from people staying at home. Peak summer is about 4 million gallons per day. That's all those customers that still use potable treated water irrigation. The total population estimate for the town of Windsor is 36,700. That's the latest number we have from Scott Ballstat. And we estimate the Windsor water service area to be probably between 24 and 25,000 people. That's just the Windsor utility that's receiving that water, that population. That's sort of all that darker blue area right there. The annual demand for the town in 2020, for the first time, the town treated over 900 million gallons, about 910 million gallons. 212 of that comes from Greeley. That's the contract amount currently with Greeley. 110 million gallons is also the contract amount with Fort Collins Loveland Water District. In North Weld, the town received 588 million gallons of water. This is a pretty big increase in 2020 from 2019. 2020 was hotter and drier, but this is also probably stay-at-home water use from everybody staying in Windsor. We've got some other things that kind of show Windsor is a bedroom community, and this is people staying at home. That we did some estimates that GPCD was probably like 6 to 7 gallons per person higher per day, and that's probably all just use at everyone staying at home.
Hey, Leaf, I'm sorry, if you can go back to two slides to the map. And Mayor, if you don't mind, just because I'm afraid if I raise my hand, you may not call me ever. Right where it says Boulevard, Colorado Boulevard, there's that little light blue kind of area to the east of it. What's going on there? That seems odd that that would be part of Fort Collins Loveland instead of
This cut out. John, do you?
Yeah, that is part of their service area, and we've never really looked into taking that out or adding it into our area, but that is part of Fort Collins Loveland's water district area to serve. So that's why you see that, just that low area right down there by the river. That is part of their service area.
Okay.
And John, do you know, is there a customer there? Is there a specific customer they serve, or it's just part of their area?
I don't think there is a customer, but there might be some agreements to serve customers in the future. So.
Okay, yeah, because I do know water districts. They basically define their district boundaries, right? And so I'm sure when Fort Collins Loveland had that little bump out, there was a reason they tried to go that far. It might have ceased to being real 30 years ago. But
I think there might be agreement with Mr. Kaplan to serve that area. So.
Thank you.
This is just a chart that shows the water use by customer class. This is the demand by customer class. As you can see, about 70% of the water treated in Windsor is residential water use, followed by industrial. There's a few of those landscape only taps. Commercial, this is kind of a new class we've been tracking lately, is the town use. That's the town facilities. That also includes the tank at Public Works, also the tower. Another way to look at that too, besides just the demand per those customer classes, is also the number of taps. As you can see, it's about 95% of the taps in Windsor are residential people. So that's why you can see that increase in use, probably from stay-at-home orders. And this is mostly showing Windsor is a bedroom community, most of that use indoor home irrigation use also.
Does oil and gas, I assume, fall inside that industrial bucket? I think we've provided water to oil and gas, right, for fracking?
No, I don't think Windsor hasn't provided any water for fracking.
Okay.
Yeah, I think with the northern tracking rules, it adds an extra burden to track all that, make sure it's within the northern boundaries, everything like that, that without having other water supplies to use for that, it just creates another accounting mechanism the town would have to take care of. Currently, all the town's water rights is made up of Colorado Big Thompson units or CBT units. That's both direct allotment contracts with Northern Water, as well as share ownership in North Poudre Irrigation Companies, the NPIC. Northern boundaries just throughout Northern Colorado. Everyone's probably pretty familiar with that. Now just kind of a look down further at the yields of the town water rights. So that, as I said, a majority are just the allotment contracts between Northern and the town. The town currently owns 3,969 units. The average yield of that is 2,778 acre feet, which is using a 70% quota. The firm yield assumes a 50% quota, and the planning yield is a 60% quota. Without ownership in North Poudre Irrigation Company, every share of North Poudre has 4 units of CBT. The town owns 533.75 shares in North Poudre. That's approximately 2,135 CBT units. You get a different yield in North Poudre besides the northern quota because North Poudre charges an additional shrink to maintain their system. They have a lot of ag users in northern Colorado, kind of north of Fort Collins also, and north of Windsor too. The North Poudre irrigation system's pretty large system. Also, these 533.75 units makes the town of Windsor probably, I think, one of the top 4 shareholders in the company. Fort Collins is a big owner. Each one of the districts, the tri-districts between Elko, Northweld, and Fort Collins, Loveland. But Windsor's right up there with those towns, water providers. You can just see yield summarize this graph. We've got about 4,000 acre feet average year with the snow. Feel a little better, can probably get a few better nights sleep now with this last snowstorm for that supply.
North Cooter has no natural river water?
North Cooter does have natural river water. They have their direct flow and their storage rights. There's just not been a change of North Cooter water rights yet. So North Cooter divides their water between, they have what's called MU, municipal use, which is the CBT. And then they have an ag component basically, and they declare an ag dividend and an MU dividend every year. And that ag water, the town rents back to everybody that calls and gets put on the rental list.
So while we own shares in the company, we really only have rights to their CBT water, not their natural water.
Right, without taking that water to court for change.
Yeah.
But
okay.
It's tough to be the first to go through a ditch system for a change of use, especially one as big as North Cooter with the CBT, that storage. It'd be a pretty intense change of use. And also North Cooter's rights are pretty junior, just on the river and their storage. So they really do use a lot of that CBT water in their system.
Thanks.
Here's a look at the town's current water portfolio, as well as hopefully what it could look like in the future. On the previous graph, the gray and red, that's the CBT between North Cooter and the CBT units. This green bar there is for the 271 units that Raindance was dedicating through their development. The town has acquired all of that. Additionally, with the CBT units, the Raindance is transferring that GLIC water, the Greeley-Loveland Irrigation Company's water. That's going through water court right now. It was originally going to be set for trial December of 2020. With COVID, the trial was vacated to be pushed back, and now it won't be till the end of 2021. But then hopefully we won't have to go to trial and we can resolve these last few issues with the remaining objectors. There's still quite a few in there, but we're just down to the last two issues trying to work through. We did file a substitute water supply plan, or an SWSP, with Division 1 to use that water this year if we need to. So that is an additional supply available. If we do use this water, we will have to start maintaining those return flow obligations that are in that water court decree. So it's, you get the water, but then you also got to start operating it. It's sort of the one-way door that once you bring it through from municipal use, you always have to maintain that historical return flow obligation. That's winter return flows, summer return flows. Then the purple on top there's the Northern Integrated Supply Project, or the NISP water, and that should hopefully be about 3,300 acre feet if the project goes through as planned currently. So with the Northern Integrated Supply Project, that's mainly the Glade Reservoir located up there, Highway 14, 287. This shows the rerouted Highway 287. Galeton Reservoir will be built out at Galeton. It's now on the north side of Highway 14. Big thing with NISP are those inner ditch exchanges with Larimer and Weld and the Newcash companies, where that water will continue to be used for agriculture, but then that water can be moved up to stored into Glade. Status with Glade, still moving through the permitting process. Probably be over $100 million. Currently right now, it's about $105 million project costs for the town of Windsor. That's hasn't been moving any dirt yet or anything, so that cost will probably go up. Also, some highlights though for NISP this year is the state of Colorado issued its water quality certification. That was upheld. The Larimer County Board of Commissioners approved the county 1041 permit for the NISP pipeline. That ruling is being challenged by Save the Pooter. Save the Pooter is suing the Larimer County Commissioners in Larimer County District Court right now. So we'll see what happens with that. Keep everyone appraised of what's happening with that. And hopefully, though, we'll have our record of decision in April. John said he'd buy everybody a drink of their choice if it's finally here in April.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it, buddy.
I'll take some fresh water.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, Leaf, that green line that goes from Gallatin back down ties into two different ditches, well, back to the river too. Is that a water delivery? Is that an input line or an output line?
So that's to pump out of the South Platte River, to pump back to Gallatin, and then also move that water into the ditches between Larimer and Weld and New Cache. So it's to take that extra water along the South Platte so the ditch companies can keep fully diverting their decrees, and then a like amount of water can be taken up at Glade for those amounts, since the ditch companies will be kept whole.
It's bi-directional, David. It can go both ways.
But Gallatin gets filled from the South Platte?
Correct.
Yeah.
So the NIS project has South Platte water rights that it'll fill Gallatin with.
Okay.
That water...
In my head, I'd always assumed the water moved from Glade to Gallatin, but it really doesn't. It's Gallatin's getting filled from its own.
It moves by paper.
Yeah. Exchanging the rights.
Right. Yeah. Those ditch rights are the exchange mechanism to move that water, taking the high flows in the South Platte when they're available and in priority, putting it into Gallatin so that you can push water out of Gallatin into the ditch companies, exchange the ditch company's water at Glade through the Poudre Valley Canal. Now we can get into the fun part of the snowpack. This is what I took to Water and Sewer Board last Wednesday, hoping it would change quite a bit. Unfortunately, the data from the latest snowstorm hasn't been updated all the way, but preparing this for Water and Sewer Board, you can see this is the SNOTEL data for the South Platte Basin on February 26th. We're about 92% of average in the South Platte Basin overall. Some of the preliminary stuff today has the South Platte Basin overall at 97%. After the storm, that could still be updating or people out of the office too and not having all that information. The table is just the Division of Water Resources snow survey data, where they go out the end of the month and physically measure that along their SNOTEL courses. And that's 92% of average just in the Cache-la-Poudre River Basin. The NRCS snow courses, those are pretty much all now the SNOTEL sites in the Poudre Basin, and those are showing about 105% of average. That data set's a little more limited in years as opposed to the snow courses. Those have been around about 3 times as long as these NRCS ones. So to try and find something from this weekend snow, this is the NRCS SNOTEL data. This is the current water year line. And over the weekend, this is about 4 inches of snow water equivalent from that storm in the Cache-la-Poudre Basin. So it was about 13 inches of water. We're up to 17% now. So John and I can sleep a little better. That's about 20% more supply now up there. And then hopefully we can get some free river, put that water into Kyger too. But
I'm sorry, what are the other colors there? The purple, are those just different years?
Yeah, the purple, this is the max of the Cache-la-Poudre, the hydrograph. This green line is probably the more important. That's the median for the NRCS snow surveys. This red one is the 2011 year. This dark one, this is the 2003 year. So these are just kind of showing that range as opposed to just the lines. You've got the area in between them. Also with the drought outlook for Colorado, this is from February 23rd also. Larimer, Weld counties were in some sort of form of severe drought. This gets updated on Thursday, hopefully, so we can probably just send out that updated number, this chart, and the weekly updates that hopefully a lot of these colors will change going the other way. I mean, I think before the snow started, Fort Collins had 1 1/4 inches of rain. So that's sort of supply outlook portion. Just have a brief update kind of on the water conservation. A few of the highlights, we're currently working on the drought management plan. That's in partnership with Clearwater Solutions doing most of that work, along with John, myself, Parks, Public Works. We're kind of coming together, putting all that together to have the levels. We'll hopefully have that soon, and then there will be some workshops upcoming in the next few months to go through that drought management plan. We also received a grant from Colorado Water Conservation Board to work on that drought management plan, and hopefully that'll be wrapped up by the end of the year. The other thing, this will be the final year for the washer and toilet rebates that the town offers. Few reasons for that is just a lack of interest for people participating in the program, as well as all you can get now are washers and toilets. Victor, did you have a question? You're on mute.
Hey, Vic, you're on mute.
You're still on mute, Vic.
Oh, I'm back.
Yeah.
But being in the trades, I didn't even hear about this. And I deal with this all the time. If I could have, I got 5-gallon toilets. If I had known that, instead of repairing it, I would have replaced it. So I think there's a communication problem within the town that you didn't get this out to the contractors to push this project for you. So I don't know if you want to make this your final year for this without pushing it out and putting it into our area to let us know how we can help to save water.
Right.
And I'll echo that from a resident standpoint. We got new wash and dry last year, and it's my responsibility. I didn't even think about looking to see if there was a rebate from the town, but I did not know about it either.
And my final concept is, why are we not pushing for houses that and putting in recirculation pumps in houses?
Yeah.
Back I was in San Diego when we had back in the 80s that we were out of water and we put recirculation pumps in. If you have a house that you're waiting 2 minutes to have hot water to a shower, and you're waiting 2 minutes, and you do this with a party of a family of 4, you're wasting 20,000 gallons of water a year. That's enough to fill an Olympic pool. So why are we not pushing the fact to put recirculation pumps in houses and saving water?
I think that's part of why we're not doing the washer and toilet rebates anymore, because really I think we did 6 all of last year.
We did, yeah, 7.
But you're absolutely right, Victor. I think there's a lot bigger fish to fry out there, a lot bigger low-hanging fruit that we should tackle, like instituting, AWWA standards in new construction of houses and putting recirculation pumps and designing that plumbing to where it works a lot better in today's homes, and also focusing more on the potable outdoor water use side, which we get a lot more bang for our buck by giving people a rain sensor, for example, or something of that nature, versus, all the new toilets. Most of Windsor is new growth. It's post 1994 growth, so they've already got low flow toilets and good washers, but it's focusing on those outdoor irrigations, those big users of water is probably where we're going to start focusing our energy and money on in the budget.
Well, I can agree with you there on that point, John, but the other thing is we got the main downtown, the main area that doesn't have recirculation pumps in it.
Yeah. And I think that's something we would totally look at, and we'd even look at throwing rebates for those things.
Well, but you get with the local plumbers, local service guys, and let them know that they can help them out by getting them a rebate, and then we can move that for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean that's a good point, Vic. You let us do this. Let staff just like talk a little bit more, like John's saying. We're thinking, where's the best place to put the town's money? Where's the best place for us to actually get a bang for the buck and reduce water waste? But you bring up a great point, which is, I found out about the rebate when we did the last mayor's newsletter, and it was in there. I'd never heard of it either. So I think it was probably a big push out program, and then it's just something that we didn't really promote that well. So you bring up a great point. Let staff talk about that too and see, again, okay.
And I will mention, that this isn't just unique to Windsor. Every community that's done toilet washer rebates has seen steady declines in the requests for those, because we're really reaching natural replacement of all those 5-gallon and 3.5-gallon toilets, and washers have become so much more. And we're almost 20 plus years past that mandate that mandated these things. So it's really dwindled a lot across the board, not just in Windsor.
Agreed. Let's move on, Leaf.
All right. So we do have quite a few things to look at too, though, to kind of get to that bigger bang also, though, to try and find ways you can have a measurable conservation of that water use, because you kind of have that targeted area in Windsor of, that's the older part, and trying to go through and figure those things out. So we'll keep working on that. Just a few other highlights with Northern Water and the Parks Department. They audited, I think it was 6 of the parks in Windsor, their irrigation system. Although most of those parks in Windsor are non-potable, when that is more efficient, that does leave you more of a supply for other things, adding more parks over time, where if you're more efficient with your water, that saves you some. And then that's also less augmentation that the town has to make that water when you're pumping less out of your wells. This is another year we're doing the Garden in the Box. That's just a $25 rebate through Resource Central for ordering those Garden in the Box. I think those always sell out pretty fast. Unfortunately, we were just at the limit too with Resource Central. We asked for, I think, 75, and they said the most you could do is, I think it was 50, and they just capped it because there's so much interest through all of northern Colorado. Actually, I think they're into Denver also now, the Resource Central and these Garden in the Box rebates, that they just can't get all the plants anymore to offer that. The other thing the Water and Sewer Board is putting on are the landscape boot camps. You might have seen some information about that. That's just a series of YouTube videos, 3 videos to watch. Have someone talk about different types of water use between trees, grass, plant selection, and then on March 27th, we'll have a live Q&A over Zoom to talk through. If anybody's got any questions, they can ask the CSU Ag Extension. If for additional input on any of that, get further advice on any of that, and then I'll probably attend that too, just for that live portion. Those are pretty popular for something to do during COVID, where we can't have a lot of contact gatherings, that virtually we can have this. A lot of people attended that last year too. For the non-potable water system overview, we kind of divided that up between the private non-potable dual-use systems and then into the town. So we'll start with the private dual-use systems first. Purple pipe throughout town, probably see those boxes. 1994, just a little bit of history. Water Valley became the first development to propose building a dual water use system. After having that, town analyzed the data, does show about 50% of total water use is for indoor use, and the other 50%, that's for outdoor use. 2003, the town passed the ordinance requiring secondary water systems for irrigation of new residential development within Windsor's urban growth boundary. That ordinance also required the construction of those water systems. They must be privately managed by a metro district, HOA, or other public or private entity. That's subject to approval by the town also. It also established the geographical areas where non-potable systems should be required. Pretty much all the growth in Windsor is over some sort of farmland where you can keep that water on that land to irrigate with. and reduce those treatment costs later on. That's also a condition of annexation, is that non-pot requirement. This chart just shows the growth of the dual use systems through Windsor from 2004 to 2020. As you can see, huge spike from 2019 to 2020. That's Rain Dance coming online. That's Greenspire. That's a lot of development. That it's about 1,600 accounts that are single family, multifamily, that are now using that dual use system. And these are customers using the potable water system, but using it just for their indoor demands. So with that growth, also you can see the use over time. The blue line shows potable water use, average per account. Average account now uses about 100,000 gallons per year. About half of that is going outside. And you can see when you have that dual use system, 50,000 gallons for every single family home, you're saving that water. To put that into context for 2020, if you had to go buy that 50,000 gallons for about each one of these 1,600 homes, that's 242 acre feet at the current cost of CBT, or even using the town's current cash and lieu rate. That's, I think it's over $15 million in raw water that developers or the town would have to secure. And that's just for the water supply. That doesn't include increased treatment capacity, chemicals, conveyance, changing your contract with Greeley, Fort Collins, Loveland, Northwell, digging into that capacity, where this really reduces those peaks, and it also keeps costs low in town, since the town can really manage those peaking factors that those entities charge. Additional benefits with the dual use non-pot system is that keeps water in the ditches for a variety of users between the ag users, and it helps the ditch company, just keeping them able to pretty much operate as normal. You don't have to worry about, bypasses or turning that water out. And like I said, it does create, it benefits your treated system too, since you're not having to build huge pipes to bring treated water to put it on lawn. So that does have an effect on rates also then. You also get that summer demand, keep that down. It keeps water in the river, minimizing your exchanges or divert it out for treatment, so that water can make it all the way through the river. It's also reduced chemical use for treatment. With reduced chemical treatment, that's also hopefully keeping reduced treatment through both ends at the wastewater treatment plant too. Even most of that water is not making it, since it'd be the outdoor use. But there's a lot of benefits to these non-pot systems that I just like to remind everybody about. What a great ordinance that is to keep water use down and to keep costs a little more manageable. That this is really a great use as we talk water conservation, also to show how much water you can save by keeping that water in that non-pot ag systems. Now for the town's non-potable use and non-potable system, this is kind of a zoomed out map for a little bit of scale. Up here is the Kern Reservoir or Windsor Lake. Way over to the west is the Kyger Reservoir. Blue line's the Cache-Spooter River. That pink line's the B.H. Eaton Ditch. That yellow line's the Whitney Ditch. Most of these green areas, those are Windsor parks. Out to the west here's the Future Legends. And this red line is kind of the conveyance of how water gets released out of Kern, delivered to these parks, as well as back to the river for irrigation or for the augmentation return flows. And that's also how water will get conveyed to Future Legends when it's built for their irrigation use. So pretty big overview there. You're pretty zoomed out, but to just zoom that in, this is just kind of a close up of the town's sort of non-pot system. That's Windsor Lake again, Kern Reservoir. Basically water gets kind of split there at Chimney Park, can go over to Water Valley or go over to Diamond Valley or the Future Legend site, then can go down to the river. That gets measured again to meet the town's return flow obligations, augmentation demands for the school district, as well as the Kern decree requirements. Just an overview of the Kern Reservoir. It's town owns 100% of the 100 shares in the Kern Reservoir and Ditch Company. Originally the 1,800 acre feet of storage, irrigation of 1,000 acres. In the 02CW 301, that was the change of use for the Kern rights. It was limited to that 1,277 acre feet. That's probably going through diversion records and finding the reservoirs silted in. So you get that reduced number compared to your original decree. Change of use gave about 530 acre feet of augmentation water. With that, you've got 500 plus acre feet of return flows, and a good chunk of that water is used to meet that Front Range Energy 99-year lease for that augmentation water. After the reservoir is dredged out, expanded, the Kern filed that junior water right for the 1,966 acre feet with the right to refill when it's in priority. That's quite a few snows and rains if you can empty Kyger or Kern and then refill it also. There's about 3,000 acre feet of storage in Kern.
Hey, Leaf, what's behind that Front Range Energy? It sounds like what we're doing is we are providing augmentation water to meet Front Range Energy's obligation because it's
right. So Front Range, the ethanol plant, has it's 3 or 4 wells that they use to pump. And since they're pumping their wells out of priority as part of their change decree, they entered into a long-term lease with the town. The town provides them that augmentation water, and they bought that water at about $500 an acre foot. It was originally 500 acre feet, and now it's down to about, I think it's 460 or 470 acre feet every year that they can use for their augmentation plant.
And there's still some 75, 80 years left on that, I'm guessing.
Yeah. Additionally, besides Windsor Lake, you have Kyger Reservoir. Kyger Reservoir is 1,200 acre feet, a little over 1,200 acre feet, about 900 acre feet of active storage. If you've driven out there recently, it's pretty low. We had to use a lot of Kyger to meet the town's return flow obligations and those augmentation demands throughout the year into the winter also. It can be filled by gravity from the river. So hopefully as this snow melts, the river stays high enough, we can just open that gate and the water will just come in. Or if the river gets a little lower, you can pump that water out of the river into Kyger. And then to make those return flows and releases, you use the pump station, pump out the other way. It's 20 CFS between the 2 pumps. Hopefully we get that in priority any day now. I think the South Platte calls up to 1922 storage. That was this morning. As this melts, hopefully that'll move up and we can start putting water back in there. All that water is used for parks. It's part of that school district agreement to meet the augmentation for their decrees. You can also use that for your Kern return flows. You can also eventually use that for your Greeley-Loveland return flows when the town gets the decree for that. You can also even just use that water, release it, pick it up in another place for irrigation. When you look at the cost of the reservoir, it comes out to about $5,000 per acre foot. That was the $6.3 million total price. That was $2.75 million for the reservoir. $1 million roughly for the water rights. There's some new cash shares out there that the town acquired with getting the Kyger property. And the big expense was the $2.5 million for the pump station to pump in and out. But there's a good location along the river, so that gravel pit storage will be handy and be a pretty good working asset for the town. So that's the overview for the town and dual use systems there that are privately owned also. We thought we'd kind of talk through probably for a good chunk of time is the challenge and opportunities that the town will face as we look at water supply and everything else going around. Windsor is still growing very rapid. With that comes the challenges of securing water rights and competition of water rights. As we wait for the Northern Integrated Supply Project, or NISP timeline, that every sort of month that gets delayed kind of, makes you worry about it. Is it going to be up and running when they said that here we are 2021, it was already supposed to be built 2015, and now 15 years from now, that reservoir should be up, running and full of water. that also has an effect currently on the town's raw water dedications policies. The town's currently 100% cash in lieu. If that record of decision comes back, either way, it'll help determine if we're doing the right thing for dedication or if that needs to be changed. So every month that passes, you're just gets a little anxious, but hopefully we'll have that in April. A few other things between the regional partnerships. We're pretty close to getting a interim water lease agreement with the city of Greeley. Greeley is willing to provide about 1,000 acre feet of hopefully CBT that'll provide that gap between now and when NISP is online. We'll continue to rent that from Greeley, but hopefully we can use it wherever we need to within the town system that can give us the most flexibility. We also will hopefully amend the contract to change some provisions in there that'll secure a little more water for the town. With that, also working with Fort Collins Loveland Water District on the regional treatment plant with Severance and Eaton for the NISP treatment plant up there at Cobb Lake that we've got the land. We'll have the treatment opportunities there, can maybe secure a long-term agreement to use Fort Collins Loveland's tank storage at Crossroads. Those are some long-term type things. And then between short-term things, besides waiting for it to snow like this or not snow, there's quite a bit of issues with the wildfires this year, both the Cameron Peak fire, which burned a majority of the Cashlaputa River watershed, and the East Troublesome fire, which burned a lot of the CBT system watershed. Greeley, Fort Collins, and Northern are doing quite a bit of work on mitigation along the Cameron Peak fire side. See what happens. That it shouldn't be as big of an issue during snow and runoff. It's more those rain events that happen where you have to shut off the plant and lose all that water. But that ash water does have a long-term effect on your treatment plants. When you're taking that through your filters, have to backwash more, increase costs of your treatment. And so there's those early warning systems in place along the river to stop diverting that water if you need to. For the East Troublesome fire, that was a lot of acreage in the Northern CBT project. I think we're just kind of having to wait and see what'll happen, but Northern's pretty determined in the few workshops they've had that it will be business as usual. They're going to be able to continue to deliver without water. They don't anticipate long-term shutdowns or shortened conveyance of water because of the fire impacts. But I think the good thing with someone like Northern too, if there are projects that need to happen, Northern will probably be able to manage those projects to help us out. But
I think you've got a hand raised, Leaf.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, Leaf, this is Ken. Regarding the leasing of water with Greeley, is that an annual deal or is that as needed?
It'll be annual for 10 years with the option to renew for an additional 5.
So 1,000 acres a year for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
Okay. And second question, regarding the regional water treatment plant, I didn't think we'd made a decision on that yet. I thought we were still pursuing the idea that perhaps we could be part owners some way with existing regional or with existing treatment plants as they expand versus investment of creating a whole new infrastructure.
Right. And Ken, so we're kind of still running both tracks right now. You know, the town board did buy that property
right.
4 ways last year. And so we are still working to see how that would work out. I think that what my goal would be is to bring the best long-term benefit back to the board. And so, you know, would it be nice if we could work out a partnership that didn't require a whole new plant? You know, of course it would. But I think we're still vetting that out. So we're certainly well short of putting in a foundation up there for the new plant. You know, we're not there yet, but we are talking to them about just how it would work and how this treatment partnership would work. And we're doing that work because we don't have anything else solidified. And what we don't want to do is have NISP come online and not have a facility to put the water.
Exactly.
So I I think that the short-term rental with Greeley, again, we're not quite there yet. We still got a couple of details we're going back and forth with. But some of the longer serving board members will recall that this has been an effort that's been underway for a couple of years. It's taken us a while to get here, and we're treating this as kind of the first, hopefully nice win with one of our regional partners, Greeley, and hope we can build on that with other more complex agreements.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And, how about advocating one way or another on the treatment plant? Because we definitely, there's pros and cons to having our own treatment facility or being owners of that. Without numbers or without knowing what would be in any type of intergovernmental agreements, it just on the surface would seem that it's more economical if we could be part of expanding existing versus creating a whole new infrastructure that's probably $80 to $100 million. So I appreciate that we're not there yet. And I'm not committed one way or the other. Yeah.
Right. And Ken, I would just say, I think part of the challenge is stepping into existing governance structures, right? So if we step in, we have whether it was Northwell or City of Greeley or City of Loveland or Fort Collins Loveland, whoever it was, there's an existing governance there. And I think part of what the town board wants to seat at the table. And so I get what you're saying about the cost, and one would think, sure, this should be more efficient to just buy into an existing facility. But I think when you talk about governance structures and other things, it's just not a super easy conversation.
Right, I understand that. So, I get it. Yeah, appreciate it. Yep.
Were there any other questions?
Do you have anything more for us?
Just a brief update. I'm sure you've heard the Terry Ranch project. The Terry Ranch project is a City of Greeley project that is an Aquifer Storage and Recovery, or ASR project. The Terry Ranch itself is located just north of Clark, Colorado, just south of Wyoming state line. It'll, for Greeley, develop approximately 1.2 million acre feet of non-tributary groundwater. The good thing for Terry Ranch, that can help Greeley store water during wet years to be used in dry years, sort of similar to their Milton Seaman project, but just in an aquifer. With underground storage too, that does give you protection from forest fires. Probably the big thing, if you've heard a lot, is the concern with uranium in that well water. Greeley's done testing and has shown that the Terry Ranch water has low levels of natural occurring uranium that can be easily treated and removed. Greeley's current High Mountain Reservoir water in their system also has low levels of uranium. They removed that, several other contaminants on a day. They proved over a 30-day pilot test they could reduce that to non-detectable limits of uranium, which makes it safe for drinking water. A few other benefits with this project is that should really limit the competition for Larimer and Weld and Newcache supplies. If Greeley can obtain a separate storage, that they won't need to come buy more Newcache, Larimer, and Weld, that should hopefully free up the market for that. You'll have one less person to bid against for that. That also helps with the NIST project and the Ag Secure program portion of that. This groundwater type storage project should also help with long-term droughts. If there's long periods of drought, you've got that water stored to then access in water years, in the wet years. This could also help out if the CBT call with the Colorado compact call comes on later on. There could be an opportunity for water out there to be available to either rent, buy, something like that. So there are benefits to that out there for a large water supply like that. The town's just currently waiting for that record of decision for NIST, but that'll really determine a lot of where we go. Just kind of a brief graphic of what that Terry Ranch project looks like is this up here at the top. This is all from Greeley. Is there'd be a small treatment plant at Terry Ranch. You'd pump water out of the ground.
Leaf, the mayor has his hand up.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Quick question. Maybe you were going to get to this, but obviously when we start talking about one of our potential partnerships to store water being, the Terry Ranch aquifer, and that the water that is in there naturally occurring uranium. I guess my question would be, in a nutshell, either you or Mr. Thornhill could explain to the viewers at home how uranium is removed from the water. Greeley may already do that, like you said. One of their other watersheds or bodies of water might already have that. I just know that could, since we're talking about it and it's out there, and there's obviously other contaminants that we know are in the water that have to be removed. But that being a very that could be a red flag for some of our citizens, and I would throw that out there in a nutshell. How do they remove uranium from the water supply?
I'm trying to remember my treatment that if you can filter
event, you can throw it to Mr. Thornhill.
I was like, you might have to throw that to Thornhill if that's filtered out, or if
I'm not even the watershed guy. I think it's just part of the natural treatment process. It will remove that. We're talking very, very low levels of uranium, naturally occurring uranium. So, the limits are like 40 parts per trillion, right? And most of the time they're seeing stuff well below that limit that gets removed in the process. There are parts in Terry Ranch that were above that 40 parts per trillion, but they can remove that as well through different types of filtering and stuff. Greeley has offered to come and give a presentation and talk more in depth about that actual process and how the project's going to work if the board would like to see that.
I think it would be beneficial for the residents to be able to see that.
They got thousands of pages of testing and reports and stuff on what they did. So I don't think Leaf and I could summarize it here in a few minutes.
And that's okay. Maybe Mr. Hale puts that on the list of future work session topics.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that, Mayor. And I would just add that uranium is naturally occurring anyway in water, that this is not just specific for Terry Ranch or this specific water. I think it's pretty common. The people who have pushed hard against this project have really used that as kind of a wedge issue to say, geez, it has uranium, but this is not like I said, it's not a big spill site. This is naturally occurring. And I know in talking to Greeley staff that they can treat it below non-detect. So they can basically, in effect, just get it out of the water.
Well, like I said, because it's out there, I think we owe it to the residents to, they care about what's in their water. Obviously, we've won awards for the quality of the water that we serve to our, residents. And I just think that, it's probably a good idea for, Greeley to share that information with us on how they do treat it. Most people don't know what's in our water before, it comes out of the tap. And I think that, that could be new news to me. And I've even, been through water literate leaders class and everything. And that's something that didn't specifically come up. So maybe I think it would be a good add into a work session at some point down the line.
And I think, absolutely. I don't, it's not necessarily a con, but I think the selling of this water supply is probably going to be the biggest hurdle for the communities around here, because this is going to connect to other water supplies and other districts and other users as well. So, I think we're all going to have to be talking about this water and messaging it appropriately and talking to our citizens or residents about this water supply. So.
Okay.
And Mayor, I just have one thing to add to that. The only other concern I heard from a resident had to do with fracking in the area. Like, if they're going to talk about it, maybe give them a heads up that that's something that came up, that it was either they're currently fracking through the aquifer or it is permitted and they haven't drilled yet. It's one of the two or both. I don't know. But I guess throw that in there with what the mayor had brought up.
You can let them know. Thanks.
Okay.
Hey, how do we take out uranium out of water?
It's with an anion exchange resin bed. You got to have a cation before it, meaning water softener. Then it works just like a water softener. It's anion material, which is it's a uranium-specific anion.
Okay. So it's an anion exchange.
I guess Vic didn't mute his microphone and decided to make a phone call. Maybe that's a lifeline phone call.
It is about uranium treatment, so it's
yes.
Yeah.
Very educating.
It's either through your flocculation or your sedimentation. I'm trying to remember what you do for your heavy metals.
Well, and if you look at the Kern slide, you can see they're going to have a small like treatment plant, that will take out this uranium and other particulates and stuff. But then they're going to blend that water with the Bellevue water treatment plant water before they send it on to their customers.
Right, and that water is blended. And just a reminder too, that'll be one pipeline. This just illustrates it as two to show that bi-directional, but the water comes out of Bellevue, treated, gets pumped in. They'll pump water out of the ranch, move it back to Greeley. So it won't be happening at the same time. It'll be a seasonal type thing. So that's where you get the concern with that blending water. But
and they have enough water supplies now that they won't even be doing any of that for probably 15, 20 years before they start really taking that water out or pumping it back in.
Okay.
Right. And guys, can you tell me again, how many acre feet is Horsetooth?
Horsetooth is 140,000 acre feet.
And how big, like with our NIST project, how big will those be?
So Glade is 170,000, and then another 45,000 for Gailton.
45 in Gailton.
So you've got about 5 NIST projects sitting in there.
Right. So I just wanted the board again, just that quick scale. This is 1.2 million acre feet that's aquifer. So it's more underground storage that Greeley's developing than exists in all of our surface lakes right now in northern Colorado. So this really is a huge project. We've had really no conversation substantively with Greeley about, geez, is there room here for the town of Windsor to store eventually? But I think obviously that could be a conversation in the works. Right now Greeley's just addressing its own water needs, and I think we'll look for partnerships down the road. But this is certainly, I would anticipate if they move forward with this would be a conversation the town board would be having in the next 3 to 5 years would be my guess, because as you all know, we need we need storage desperately in town. And so this would be such a nice drought tolerant underground storage. Greeley may be really developing this for all of us, when it's all said and done.
Mr. Kozlowski has his hands up. He's looking for a high five.
Yeah. Unmute, lower my hand. Yeah, there's a separate thing for high fives, I think. But hey, I did have a couple questions before we get done with this. This is a really good overview, but I got to say that I think those of us who've been on the board and been through this a bit, and water literate leaders, probably tracked with all the information a bit better. I'm imagining the new board members could stand to hear it again and again, because it's a ton of information. And Leaf, you sort of referenced some things that would almost assume a bit of prior knowledge. I guess I have 3 questions. One, when you look at NISP and when you look at the record of decision, and certainly we can anticipate there will be lawsuits filed, but is your sense that if the record of decision is issued, while the lawsuits may delay, that it will not ultimately prevent NISP from going forward? I think a second point that we may have to have a discussion about is our raw water dedication. And I know you hinted that's related to what's going to happen on NISP. Right now we're 100% cash in lieu, but I'm not sure the rest of the board understands exactly what we're charging the developer for cash in lieu. And I think that's a bit of almost a policy decision. I know those of us who were around can probably recall that initially the cash in lieu amount essentially was really the cost of CBT. And yet when CBT was going up and up and up, and in fact, in many cases, just simply no longer available, I think that John, you and Shane, I think the amount we're charging now is not reflective of market rates for water, but really the market rate for water, for NISP water, if in fact it ends up getting built, which is different. And I think the board ought to be aware of that and knowing that that's what we're collecting. I guess my final comment really was relating to the water treatment partnerships, and I'm just going to echo what Ken said. I hope we don't totally dismiss an opportunity to partner up with adding a treatment bank to an existing facility, just because of the complexity of having to join a governance structure. Because certainly a multi-owner project will also require a fairly robust ownership structure to be negotiated, put in place, and tested. So I do want to keep both options open. Anyway, any comments on NISP and the record of decision? And then maybe following up on the raw water dedication, the amount we're charging for the cash and oil.
Well, yeah, I think for NISP with that record of decision and the lawsuits, that really what that'll be is just more time, unfortunately. That, the Chimney Hollow project for Windy Gap experienced the same thing. They got their record of decision. Now they're finally settling all those lawsuits and can hopefully start construction. I think there might still be one more lawsuit, but that delayed by 2 or 3 years. So the record of decision will be the big hurdle that we can at least move forward to the next step, at least, is kind of waiting for this record of decision. You're just waiting.
And I think, too, you'd be able to, there are a lot of activities that we can still pursue and do while we work our way through the courts, especially when it comes to acquiring assets. You're still going to need to get exchanges with the ditch companies. You're still going to need to buy land and property and stuff. Those things can continue whether, we're in court or not. And those will continue for the next few years while we work through the court.
Your comment, the comment on the record of decision, the potential lawsuits, and not potential, I mean, they will be filed. I think we all know that. And I think maybe you said it, I believe, Leaf, but I don't think you can stress enough the fact that Terry Ranch being an aquifer storage does not have to go through Army Corps of Engineers in the permitting process. So when you look at, what was it, Boulder Canyon trying to add, 20 feet or something to the top of a dam? They've been trying to do that for 25 years. Seaman Reservoir is trying to get expanded. That battle has been going on for years. NISP has been going on for years. Terry Ranch can be done quickly and without all of the permitting process and legal process. So that is yet another reason that it's such an excellent opportunity.
Mayor Pro Tem Bennett, you had your hand up?
Yes, thank you. While we're on the topic of storage, I just want you to make certain I'm correct in my understanding. If we, the town of Windsor, and all of our residents in 2021, if we do a really good job of conserving water and we don't use all of our allocated CBT water this year, we can bank up to 10% of that, is my understanding, through Northern Colorado Water.
We can bank 20%, Ken.
20%.
Okay, that's better than I thought. Then next year in 2022, we would need to use that 20% first, is what my understanding is. So can we bank ever more than 120%? Can we accumulate over the next 2 or 3 years and have 140, 150, 160? Okay, that's my understanding. Okay. Short term, well, I guess right now we can bank up to 20%. That's better than I thought. But I just want to emphasize, I think exploring all of our storage options is a good way to go.
That's why we always talk about it's not usually year one that's the problem year in the drought. It's the second year.
Right.
Because even if year one, you only get a 50% quota, we'll take that 20%, make it a 70% quota.
Right.
So year one, but if you have another year just like that, you're not going to carry over that 20%. Yeah. You're going to use it all. And then you're going to be looking for other additional supplies.
So have staff been looking into other avenues of storage short term? And I think short term is probably 5 years.
The tough part with storage too, though, because you could, in theory, take all your CBT, run it, and store it someplace. it's going to be tough to find a place where you can store that CBT and then get to a treatment plant.
And it's really due to them changing the rules too, Ken. Okay. Or, you know, we used to just put CBT wherever you could find a hole and then use it later. But now they require you to have a downstream user or a user for that water in the next year. Oh. If you have a wet year and then nobody wants to rent that water, you end up spilling that CBT on the east slope. And that's a huge problem for Northern Water and the West Slope users, okay, where they would argue you should have never diverted that water to begin with. You should have left it over in the Colorado and not taken it over here and then spilled it to Nebraska.
Okay.
If you read the articles about Lake Loveland, that's kind of what's going on.
Yeah.
Right.
And what happened when they passed that rule, the city of Greeley can no longer put that 5,000 acre feet of CBT water into Lake Loveland every fall. So
it seems short-sighted.
Yeah.
If you mentioned briefly, just in passing, the potential for a Colorado River Compact issue and a call that would affect CBT, I think. Again, some of our board members are new to probably the whole water puzzle. And can you talk about the Colorado state sort of water plan and also the Colorado River Compact status?
Well, so the Colorado River Compact and then the Colorado River Compact call is based upon that. I don't even know if you could call that an intergovernmental agreement, but the agreement between the upper basin and lower basin states and the allocation that each state gets based upon the amount of water through the Colorado River. When that was negotiated, it was periods of wet years, or they might have even taken the wettest year through there. That's how they sliced the pie. Was they took a big pie when they probably should have taken a more representative pie. So that compact call then with your prior appropriation of water rights is basically first in time, first in right, that those water rights that are junior to the compact call would get curtailed because those other states would be calling for that water. So far, the states, the lower basin states haven't called for water, but that could happen in all of these transbasin diversions that were after that compact call of 1922, I believe, would have to curtail their diversions. So that's another point to kind of Ken is getting that storage, keeping that water where if you can keep water stored out of that, you don't have to rely as much for that. But it's a big issue that is kind of everyone, you can read the tea leaves and see it coming, but it's still, you kind of always get by with one more year. Now for the Colorado Water Plan that was just done a few years ago, that sort of outlines the plan for different projects like aquifer storage is one that's in the Colorado Water Plan that was under Governor Hickenlooper that came through. I think they just had the update with that too. That talks about ag to municipal transfers, sort of temporarily using other water rights short term. You know, you don't need an ag supply every year. You only need it every 3 out of 10 years. So finding a way to agree to ditch companies to say, hey, when it's really dry, that's when we can take the water, use it. The Colorado Water Plan sort of outlined the projections of population in the state, as well as what you can do to get water for the people when they're coming sort of regardless to live in Colorado, that we can't just keep doing the same thing with water rights and buy and dry. Now, there's executive summaries out there that we could probably have another work session just on the Colorado Water Plan.
Yeah, and with the Colorado River Storage Project for the newer board members, that was basically a 7-state treaty that established Lake Mead, it established Lake Powell. So there's a lot of other things that go into that as well, as far as energy production and level of both of those storage conveyances. You know, even at the time in 1922, Los Angeles already had over 1 million people. So it was still, you know, it's always been that 1,000-pound gorilla. And so, you know, as you can imagine, the lion's share in this project is heading to California. And so, again, is like Leaf said, they definitely did these calculations based on an extraordinarily wet year. And now that we're continuing to build out this basin and more people are using 100% of their shares, we're finding that meeting those demands downstream are really complex. And again, I think the best way to describe it is really it's almost like an interstate compact or a treaty. So it's a big agreement. It's a big complex agreement, and there's a lot of questions to it. So anyway, I think we could probably spend 6 more work sessions and have everybody still scratching their head. So I think big picture for the board is that's also at play, and it also impacts our water as it comes in. So, and I did want to say, kind of to David's point, because this is new, especially to our newer board members. Well, one is staff would be happy to meet with you guys one-on-one and go over this stuff again. And then this year, they're not doing a water leaders class because of COVID. But next year, if they start that program back up, we'd certainly like to advocate to get all 3 of you through that class if we can, because I think that it gives you a great basis of bearing. So thank you.
That was a great outro.
Any other questions, I guess, for Mr. Leaf or Mr. Thornhill?
Mr. Less One Wing, I think.
less one wing.
Hey, boss.
Yes, sir. Mr. Carpentier, go ahead.
And this is just purely just a curiosity. I thought I saw one of those title pages on the reservoirs that on the title it says it was lined. Are those reservoirs lined?
Oh, Kyger Reservoir is lined. Yeah.
That's what I saw it on. Yeah.
Yeah.
With plastic, is that what it is, or bent mag, or
Is that a slurry wall?
a slurry?
I believe it was a slurry wall.
Slurry wall, it's kind of that concrete mix down to bedrock. And then you have to pass a 90-day leak test with the state engineer's office.
Has that proven out to be worthwhile doing?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Because if it's not lined, that's a giant well out there that you would have to augment. And you can't really store in an online facility either, because you'd never be able to know what's coming in or out. So that line storage, and that the pond to the north is lined also.
I believe when we actually were doing the 90-day leak test, the Poudre River overflowed its banks and actually filled Kyger up at that time, and then they still didn't record any leaks from the liner, so it works really well.
Pretty good. What do you do for the big places?
Well, I didn't hear that.
What do you do for the bigger reservoirs, the bigger storage places?
Just more slurry for the slurry walls.
It is, huh? Sorry, that was just a personal curiosity.
Yeah, like Greeley's Poudre Ponds down there on the east side of 35th Avenue, that's slurry wall also.
So you basically go
reservoirs on Taft Hill Road in Fort Collins. Those are slurry lined.
And that slurry liner you go all the way to bedrock. So depending on the depth of bedrock is how deep you got to go. The ones in Greeley are 60 feet deep. I think the ones at Overland are not quite as deep, Leaf, if I recall.
Overland's about 25 to 30 feet.
Yeah, and I think Kyger is about 35, 40 feet or something, maybe.
Oh.
So you're tying in that liner to the bedrock. So you shouldn't have any water coming in or out unless you tell it to. So
yeah, always curious with engineering.
Yeah.
Hey, John, the gravel pits on the south side of Kyger.
Correct. Yeah.
I mean, they're still working them, obviously, but I think they're getting along in the tooth at this point. Is that another area where we might want to have an augmented water resource?
The one directly to the two to the south of Kyger are owned by other entities that use them the same way that we would use ours. So one's owned by United Water and Sanitation District that does a lot of South Platte River stuff. And you can see their pumps actually go in and out on the southwest side of that reservoir. And then the other one, Jody Reservoir, is owned by Central Colorado Water Conservancy District. They use that for their augmentation of their ag wells as well. So. Right now, we think we have enough in-town potable or non-potable storage for future needs. We just got to use it efficiently.
Leaf, I was just going to ask you to stop sharing your screen there so I can see everybody on one screen. Thanks, sir.
Now we just see you.
Yeah, I don't want to see Paul.
Any other questions for staff regarding our water resources? We have Mr. Roth, our engineer, on. He always likes to say quite a bit, so I'm, being a little reserved this time.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't have any questions, but I just want to take an opportunity to say how much I appreciate our staff. Leaf, John, the work you guys do with water, because I get to see a water sewer board. I really appreciate your depth of knowledge and your work in all this. And I know, Shane, you're involved in working on some regional water issues as well. And back to the snow thing, too. I had one concerned citizen comment today. I saw a couple of things on Nextdoor, but overall, things have gone really well. So just want to compliment all of our staff on there's a lot of good things going on right now. So thank you all.
I raised my hand because I didn't want to let one of David's questions go by because he'll just email me later and I'll have to answer it anyway. So
okay.
He was probably already typing.
Yeah, on the cash in lieu question, David, we do. Yep. It is now tied to NISP, and we've put that into the water rate model update that we do every year. So we'll take a look at all of our needs for the water system and stuff, and NISP being one of those needs. And that's how we've set that cash in lieu now, instead of tying it to the CBT market price. Because we saw that CBT market price is so far and above. Even if NISP doubled in price, it still wouldn't be as high as what the CBT market is today. So we didn't want to charge that high of a price and stifle that development.
So, and I also want to point out, David and John, that it wasn't just a price. It's the fact that the CBT is like, for a while was going on like Bitcoin, like every day it's just a new price and a new number. And there isn't really a market rate for it. It's not like there's just like a fair exchange where you set the price. It's just a farmer would say, hey, look, I'm selling 100 acre feet or, 100 shares. And then people would bid on that. And so, in April, they bid on it and they would bid 51,000 a unit. So is that the new price? I don't know. The last guy paid 45,000 a unit. And then, a month later, it was 60,000 a unit. So for us, part of it was price and part of it was just predictability. We didn't want to go back to the development community and say every month, now all of a sudden you gotta put in another 5,000 or 10,000 per home because CBT is going so crazy. And then, we do have NISP, so we do have another big thing to benchmark it to. I think it made sense. It was logical to benchmark to CBT. When it would fluctuate a few $100s a year, it was pretty easy to say that's our water source. But again, as was pointed out, those sources are few and far between now. And because they are diminishing, the price is going way up. So it's just, again, I think it was as much as price as stability to try to benchmark to another. As Leaf brought up, I can tell you as a policy question for the board, if NISP is not approved, I believe our recommendation, the only thing we really can recommend to the board for policy is just water only. Just say wet water, because we won't have the ability to go and continue to try to buy this stuff. So I think we're going to go to the exact opposite policy spectrum. Right now, we know that with NISP coming on, we would need a lot of money that we don't have, that we haven't collected yet. So I believe cash in lieu is the correct policy now because everything is pointing towards NISP coming online. If that doesn't become true, I would recommend to the board our policy is 100% water dedication. We use the little bit of cash we've saved up for NISP to buy as much water as we can buy, and then just do wet water only. So it's challenging times, and I think the board, obviously, if you want to have another conversation about this, I think John Leaf and I have put a lot of brain damage into it, and I'm sure we'd benefit from another 7 brains beating their heads against the wall with us. But that's really where we are, I think. And John, do you have anything to add?
No, that's good.
Yeah, I think the hard part, Shane, for me, because certainly if you take a step back, the idea is develop, if you're building a new house, the town's going to need the water to service that house. So developer, you bring us that water. Well, Okay, instead give us the cash and then we'll go out and procure the water because maybe we have better opportunities than you do. Who knows? And so when the cash in lieu was some representative of a market rate where you could say, give me the cash, I'll turn around and go acquire the water that I'm going to need for these 20 homes, that all made sense. You were being driven by kind of this market. But we're not there right now. I mean, if by some horrible circumstance we had cash in lieu at the NISP rate, but we had to go out and buy water tomorrow, we wouldn't get it at the NISP rate. It would cost us a heck of a lot more.
Yeah.
And the hard part with NISP is I don't think this is almost going to be like the Walking Dead, right? I mean, people keep shooting it and shooting it and shooting it, and they won't ever quite die. It'll just all kind of get pushed back and pushed back. I don't know that we'll ever have a day where we all say NISP is there. Yay, it's 100% certain. Or more likely, it's 100% dead. And so it'll just be costing us money to put money into it. But when it actually delivers that water that we can buy at NISP rates is quite a ways down the road. If we need water in the interim, we will have been collecting cash at the NISP rate, but probably have to procure it at a higher rate. And that concerns me.
Well, right. Well, and it concerns me, David. I'll tell you, there's not a clear path here. You know, that there is absolute risk to every decision. And I can tell you that we could have an equal pro con for anything we would do. You know, I would tell you that a big reason we've been pursuing like the water lease from Greeley, you know, it's that drought water for us, but it also buys us a little bit of birthright. I mean, as you look back on that chart, 1,000 acre feet is a lot of water. It buys us a significant amount of time to get there. Because you're right. I mean, the simple argument is if you charge less than CBT and you have to buy CBT, you've lost. I think you're right. I think that for me, the part of this policy decision is the second we dug in and said, we'll accept cash in lieu only, we're also concurrently saying we're done buying CBT. You know, don't come with another 50 CBT units because we're no longer in the market to purchase those. Those units have gotten themselves so expensive that's no longer a reality for the town. So I think that's the policy decision. And again, I mean, if NISP just bombs, if the record decision doesn't come back favorably, yeah, but you know, the town has got 17 years into this project, a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of planning. And we're going to have a whole lot to unwind to figure it out. And so, you know, I can tell you that John and I have had drank a lot of coffee and had a lot of discussions about the right way to do this. And, you know, well, coffee, you know.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
but we...
I don't get the fancy beverages from Shane. I get them like McDonald's coffee. That's all they'll buy me.
Right. That's the no label stuff from Costco.
Yeah.
I will take Mr. Thornhill up though on his offer. We get a record of decision by the end of it.
Leaf promised this next month. He wrote it on a sticky. So
I think we all will have a lot of reasons to have a drink together. Fans out.
I will gladly buy.
Yes.
But let's say this. So I want a drink that's as old as from when we started this project. So right now you're buying me a 17-year-old something, and
a 2004 vintage is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm not talking about Mad Dog 2020 out of your closet.
In the cellar.
Can't believe it's already been 17 years that we've been working on this thing. Let's hope it comes to fruition. Mr. Hale, anything further in the future meetings?
Yes, sir. So there is one change from last time, and I put it in my weekly update. I had the meeting with the project team on the town hall project last week. You know, like I said in my weekly update, the good news is we've really twisted this thing down. We've been able to cut quite a bit. We cut tons out of the furniture. We've kind of had some give and take with the technology things. And I think we have the program where we need it. The bad news is it's more money than we budgeted. So I want to get our owner's rep and a contractor rep, just kind of, with the board, we'll just kind of take you guys through broadly why it's doing that, and then give you the decision of saying, kill the project, bring it back in a year, or, move forward. So anyway, I just wanted to walk through that update with you guys. I always hate to deliver this kind of news, but it's just where the project's going. And, we met last week for quite a while and went through it. And honestly, we're at a point of, could we hit the budget number? Yeah, but then, we're taking out such substantial parts of the project. It's probably not worth doing. Anyway, that's where we are. So I have put that on for next Monday. I anticipate that we'll be able to walk the board through in about a half an hour. That's new. And then in order to do that, we put the Walnut Bikeway and the Poudre Express bus stops for the April 5th work session. So that's the only change. Oh, and we've added a lot. If you look at it, we've kind of worked through, I think kind of May, June. Yeah, we're through May now with programming. So we're continuing to go through and fill it.
Any other questions for Mr. Hale or any of our other staff that are on the work session with us? Seeing no hands or high fives, I will thank everyone for joining us this evening. We'll go ahead and call our work session complete. Everyone have a wonderful week. I guess I also heard Mr. Hale that Weld RE4 may not be in tomorrow as well. I think they did cancel. They need another day to get everything in line. So, but anyhow, all that being said, thanks to all of our staff for all of their efforts today, keeping all of our streets open and operational for emergency personnel, etc. So, give our kudos to everybody in Public Works. I know I even saw Eric Lucas out on the in one of the tractors today. So hopefully he was supposed to be in that tractor, but he was pushing some snow. So happened to.
Yeah, it was in Highland Meadows. I heard he was working on a big berm in Highland Meadows today.
He was working on a big berm, not in front of my house, just so everybody knows. I I was probably the last street in Windsor that actually got any kind of activity today, just so everybody's quite aware of that. The mayor doesn't get any preferential treatment. So.
Yeah, and you'll notice, Mayor, that Paul Schwindler shall call into the work session. I think Eric went home to sleep, so he did one honest day with Public Works, and poor guy was tuckered out by 6.
Yes, I was kind of surprised to see Eric in the driver's seat. I actually had to stop and check my glasses there. Anyhow, thanks to all of our staff. You guys are great. Hopefully you guys have a wonderful and productive week, and we'll be in touch as necessary. Otherwise, everybody have a wonderful evening.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you. Good night, everybody. See you.